What's up, guys? Rick here with your betting and one and done preview for this week's WGC-Dell Technologies Match play. One of my favorite weeks of the year. As you can probably tell from some of the content that I've put out, it's a real opportunity to nerd out and geek out over this stuff. I absolutely love it. A couple of programming notes. This video is going to look a little bit different, obviously, because, we could talk head-to-heads, but we're going to focus on outrights, paths to victory. We're going to focus on winners of each group, things like that. And then we'll talk one and done, because this is still $1.8 million up top to the winner. So it is critical, even though it is incredibly volatile and all that good stuff, but we'll talk about it. Additionally, with all the March Madness stuff going on, sportsbooks are going nuts with a lot of these free bet offers. I think some sites, even William Hill, are offering $2021 in free bets in a bunch of their states. So go to RickRunGood.com/bets. See if you have an account for either William Hill in your state or BetMGM or BetRivers yet, and see what the current best offer is. Some of them are really, really good at the moment. Helps you, helps me, helps everybody. Also, the live chat for this week, the normal live chat that would be on Wednesday is on Tuesday. It's Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. And then there is, of course, still the Jock Market Power Hour Wednesday evening, 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. That's for Corrales Punta Cana. So if you want to get your Punta Cana fix, Joe Idoni and myself are going to be going over that field, that slate, that Jock Market on Wednesday evening at 8:15 live, and you can engage in the chat as well. Otherwise, I think that's it. Let's just pop up the bracket. Let's go straight to the bracket. Here it is in all its glory. Every group, every player, all the seedings, the paths to victory. This is awesome stuff here. So a couple of things. The favorites, or I guess co-favorites, are Bryson, Dustin Johnson, John Rahm, and JT. They are all 14-1. So they're here. They're essentially what odds makers have done is said, who's the best guy in each quadrant? These would be your favorites to get to the final four, right? You couldn't stick, if Bryson was in group 16, he probably, Dustin Johnson and Bryson probably both can't be 14-1 because their paths to the final four would be cracked. Then the next group of golfers at 20-1, Rory McIlroy and Colin Morikawa. Cantlay's by himself at 22-1. And then you get Casey and Spieth rounding out the 26s. So let's talk about this in terms of outright and in terms of history here. Historically, so we played this new format 5 times. The new format in which all of these golfers are going to play each other in their own group over the first 3 days. The winner is going to advance to the Sweet 16 and all that good stuff. We've done this 5 times. Studs have won it 3 times, so I would put Rory McIlroy, Jason Day, and Dustin Johnson in that group. And then the last 2 years were kind of some longer shot guys, which are Kevin Kisner's victory. He was a 48 seed out of 64 when he won it. And then Bubba Watson, I think he was 38 when he won, 38 seed when he won this event. So we've had a bit of a mixed bag. We have seen plenty of underdog runs to the finals or to the final four. Think Lucas Beauregard. Think Victor Dubuisson. We just get it every year. Guys make a run to the final four or the Elite Eight. That probably shouldn't. And also, if you missed out on the DFS preview, realize that the top seed in each one of these groups does not get out of the group all that often. In fact, last time, 2019, only 5 of the 16 top seeds got out of their own group. So there's going to be chaos. I think you should be able to embrace it this week. But let's start with outrights. I think in a complete vacuum, if you looked at who you think could win this golf tournament, like I would say it's Bryson. So of these 14-1 guys, I think it's Bryson. It's really no knock against Dustin Johnson, whose path is arguably one of the best paths. He has objectively the easiest group. He has the shortest odds to get out of his group. More on that in a second. Then the group 16, which you would face the winner of if he got there. That's not so bad. Group 9 and Group 8, they're okay. He'd run into potentially a Terrell Hatton or a Paul Casey or a Webb Simpson at some point. But all in all, that's a pretty clear path. He doesn't have to face Justin Thomas. He doesn't have to face John Rahm or Patrick Reed or Patrick Cantlay or even Jordan Spieth with that magic or even Rory McIlroy until the finals, right? So that's pretty important. So I like DJ's path here, but let's think about what goes into match play. And of course, unfortunately for me, there is a lot of non-quantifiable things that go into match play. There's gamesmanship. There's the mental side of it. To me, Bryson is kind of the perfect combination for match play. I think he eats this stuff up. I think he loves match play. I think he loves the strategy of it, the idea of it. Also, when you are longer than every single one of your opponents, think about what that's going to do on your second shot. It means that every single one of his opponents is basically going to hit their second shot first into these greens, which could be good. If his opponent is throwing darts, might be bad for Bryson. But he's at least going to know. Bryson is going to have the information. Normally in a stroke play event, it doesn't matter what your playing partner does. If he dunks his second shot in the water, if he misses the green, or if he sticks it to 3 feet. In match play, it matters critically. So when you know what your opponent has done, whether he's hit it to 3 feet or whether he's missed the green, that can change your strategy to be more optimal. If your opponent hit it to a foot, you probably need to throw a dart here. Maybe take on a little bit more risk, try to hit a shot in there nice and tight. If your guy misses the green, maybe you try to hit one to 25 feet. You take a more conservative line. But having that information is important. It is the same reason why in college football, if you win the coin toss in overtime, you go second. You play defense first because you want to know what you have to do. Do you have to score a touchdown? Do you have to get 3 points? Did you hold the other team to 0? That information is valuable, and it's what Bryson's going to get essentially everywhere. And Dustin Johnson probably will too, right? He's long enough. Justin Thomas will. Some of these long guys, but being a bomber is really, really critical for that information. And then secondly, he's a really good putter, right? Like people forget about this all the time. He's his short game. The rest of his game is phenomenal. There's a reason why he's the 5th ranked player in the world. So then he puts a lot of pressure and just grinds on guys by making putts. So if you make your putt first and you get in and you are putting all this pressure for your opponent to make, 6-7 footers on every single hole for par to have, that's a lot of pressure. It just builds up. So to me, the combination of recent form, of skill set, Bryson is, of what I believe his mentality is, Bryson's awesome. And his path is Fleetwood, Siwoo Kim, Antoine Rosner. Again, a lot of these top seeds don't make it out of their group, but objectively, that should be a pretty easy group to get out of. Then he would face the group in the Sweet 16 that is Finau, Kokrak, Zalatoris, and Fratelli, which there's a lot of question marks in that group. I'm going to talk about one of those guys in a second. But for me, Finau has not been good in match play. I think he's too nice, quite frankly. Jason Kokrak, I actually like out of that group. I'll talk about that later. But him, Zalatoris, and Fratelli are all first-timers, I believe, or at least since the format has changed. That's the data that I ran. So you're getting a lot of question marks out of Group 12. So whoever wins Group 12 probably runs into the buzzsaw that is Bryson, and then Bryson would face in the Elite 8 the winners of Group 13 and 4, which would be, in theory, it could be Hovland or Morikawa, those groups. So I don't know. This path to the Final Four for Bryson, I think is clean, really clean. Not as clean as some others. We'll talk about that in a second, but I love that. The other things, path to victory, Jon Rahm's path to victory. As much as I worry about, maybe he can't get the putter going, I worry about maybe his group being a bit too friendly, with Ryan Palmer, who's his Zurich partner in that group. I worry about that a little bit. Sebastian Munoz can get hot at times. Shane Lowry has a great short game when he gets going. So that kind of can be tricky in match play. But objectively, Jon Rahm, of the top 4, has just the cleanest path to the Final Four here. He has his own group. He has the Berger group, which is full of question marks. Berger just had a rib injury that he had an MRI on. He leads Group 14. Harris English hasn't been good since he won. Brendan Todd is 0-3 in match play, and he scares me a little bit with the putter, but that's it. And then EVR, Eric van Rooyen. So his path is Rahm's path is super strong here. So as far as the big boys go, if I have to break a tie, I like Bryson. Next group, the next tier, I kind of like Cantlay here. Cantlay is coming out of Group 10. He's in the upper right-hand quadrant. Cantlay would be super annoying to play against. Think about if you are now actually playing against these guys. Like Bryson would be terrible and intimidating to play against. Dustin Johnson, same thing. Guys that would not be as intimidating. Webb Simpson, Tony Finau, just the most affable, just lovable guys. I love them, but like I'm not scared of playing them in match play. Patrick Cantlay, he's really, really good at golf and he's slow. That's like the worst combination in match play. I would be so annoyed if I had to face him. He gets a group of Hideki Matsuyama, Carlos Ortiz, Brian Harmon. Then he faces the group that would come out of Group 7, which is Reed. That's a little bit terrifying. Joaquin Niemann, Christian Bezuidenhout, and Bubba Watson. So the path for him to get to the Elite Eight is fairly clean. I think he'd be super annoying, and I think there's value on his 22-1 number. Now, if you want to go deeper than that, guys that can actually get hot and win this thing, like we saw Kevin Kisner do, like we saw kind of Bubba Watson do, like we've seen other guys make runs into the Final Four, but who can actually win this thing? Coming out of group, I think it's 15 is kind of interesting. Corey Connors. Okay, Corey Connors is an unbelievable ball striker. He's only going to go as far as the putter allows him, but he's 55-1. His group 15, that has a ton of question marks in it. Group 2, as long as Justin Thomas doesn't advance, I'm kind of okay with it. It's almost like those three, Oosthuizen, Kisner, and Kuchar are kind of teaming up on JT. We'll see if JT gets out of it. But like Connors would be a guy that I think could be sneaky to get in there. And then there was one other guy. Oh, yeah, it's Lanto. I don't know how I literally talk about Lanto constantly. So here's what we have with Lanto here. I think he's 125-1 to win this. Let me just make sure that is still the number. Yes, it is. So I'm going to talk about him in a second when I get to guys coming out of their own group. But I see this kind of a couple of different ways. Being in Rory's group stinks because I think that a change in format sparks Rory. Talk about that in a second. But if Rory just continues to play bad like he has, and Lanto can get out of this group, he has a similar path to as Rahm does. That bottom right-hand quadrant is, I think, the easiest path to get to the Final Four. So Lanto's two skill sets, the two things that he's ranked inside the top 20 on the PGA Tour in, it's approach game and it's putting. If he gets hot, that's the caveat here. If he gets hot, that's devastating in match play. If your opponent is firing darts and making putts, that's absolutely devastating. I could see Lanto making a deep run into this thing at 125-1. Let's talk about Rory real quick. Excuse me. I'm kind of a Rory believer this week. I mentioned this on the DFS preview, so I'll be quick here. It's one of these situations where he has not hoisted a trophy since 2019. He's played a lot of stroke play. When you're playing stroke play, you have to be perfect, and you have to beat every single other golfer in the field, 140, 150 guys. You got to have your A+ game. And if you don't win. You don't need that in match play. If you just have like your B+ game 7 times, you might win this. And that's what Rory's had. He only has to beat one other guy in each one of these rounds here. I think this is kind of an interesting spot for him. All right. So where I think the bigger edges are not only going to be in the round by round head-to-heads, but also in these groups. So you can bet on who to get out of groups. So I have it on this bracket here, what the group odds are. We'll just go through these real quick. Each group. Group 1, Dustin Johnson's the heavy favorite. He's plus 100. I don't think you can bet Group 1. The long shots aren't long enough, and DJ's too short, and we've seen chaos happen before. I would probably not bet Group 1. Group 16, I think is somewhat interesting, although Sungjae is just a hair too short. I think if you had to bet it, you'd bet Russell Henley at plus 225 and rely on the ball striking. The only thing that Sungjae hasn't done well is the ball striking. So if you made me bet it, I would probably take Henley in this spot. Group 9, this is the Webb Simpson, Casey Hughes, Gooch group. I would probably, again, this is probably a no bet for me, but I would probably take Gooch at plus 350 or Paul Casey at plus 160. Webb is actually one of the only top seeds that is not the favorite to get out of his group, which is somewhat interesting. Lack of respect on his match play prowess over the years, which his record has not been very good. So I probably wouldn't touch that. So it's either Gooch or Casey, but I don't think I'll get a bet in on it. And then Group 8, excuse me, I'll probably bet Hatton here. So he's plus 185. This is a really friendly group of guys with Westwood, Sergio, and Wallace. I just think Hatton is by far the best player. I do think that what is interesting is if you want to get exposure to Lee Westwood, you need to get it for him to get out of the group. I don't think I want it any further than that. He's played so much golf. He's told us how tired his legs are. I don't think we need to be a part of that this week. Also, if you win this, or if you get to the final day, you're playing 7 rounds in 5 days for a guy who's already telling us he's tired. He's 47 years old. I would only get exposure to Lee Westwood coming out of this group and not in like a Final Four championship, anything like that type of setting. I'd rather bet Bryson to win out of Group 5 than for him to actually win the group. Group 12 is the interesting one here. So I've already bet Jason Kokrak. I mentioned him earlier. He's coming in off of 3 top 10s. He's plus 260 to come out of this group that I think has a lot more questions than it has answered. Kokrak's a fiery guy. I think he gets up for things like this. He is plus 260 to win Group 12. That is already a bet for me. Group 13, a lot of the sentiment is coming in on Victor Hovland and Abraham Ancer as warranted. It's rounded out by Wiesberger and Kevin Streelman. I think Ancer is the only bettable one. I love Hovland, but I think plus 138. I mean, you compare that, it's only a little bit worse than Bryson. It's similar to Justin Thomas's number. Like, that number is just too short for me. So Group 13 is probably a no bet, but if I had to, it would probably be Ancer. Group 4 is interesting. This is Morikawa's group. I think you have to bet Morikawa here. I'm a little bit worried about Max Homa at plus 300, but Morikawa is, think about guys that you're playing against, and that's a big thing here, is he's going to fire darts all day long. Like, if he's going to put so much pressure on you with his approach shots, that is really, really scary stuff. So this is one of the spots I'm happy to just kind of eat the chalk, bet Morikawa here, take at plus 138 and have him advance out of the group, and hope and pray to the golf gods that we get a Morikawa-Victor Hovland matchup in the next round. Group 2 is Group of Death. So this is Justin Thomas's group, Louis Oosthuizen, Kevin Kisner, Matt Kuchar. Well documented how good all of these guys have been in match play, or at least the other 3, Louis, Kisner, Kuchar. I don't think, so what I think is, I would, if I was going to take exposure to Justin Thomas, it would be in DFS formats. It would be in formats that ownership is more important, because I think most people are just going to avoid Group 2. If you're filling out a bracket, I don't think I would advance Justin Thomas for game theory reasons, and I probably wouldn't bet him at plus 130, but in ownership situations where you don't have to pick every single group, like in DFS this week, I think JT is actually kind of an appealing contrarian option, because he's one of the favorites to win this golf tournament. And he also, I think a lot of people are just going to avoid Group 2 because it's the Group of Death. Group 15, this is Fitzpatrick, Wolf, Connor, Spieth. I like that Fitzpatrick is not the favorite in this group. He's plus 200. I like that. Fitzpatrick is in the midst of the best stretch of his career statistically. He's an excellent putter. That goes far in match play. I like his demeanor. I like Fitzy at plus 200 out of this group. Cantlay, I talked about Matsuyama, Ortiz, Harmon. Again, probably wouldn't bet this. This plus 138 number that they like to lay on the group favorite, it's not great. I would rather bet Cantlay to win than win Group 10. Patrick Reed leads Group 7 with Joaquin Niemann, Christian Bezuidenhout, Bubba Watson. Christian Bezuidenhout's interesting. You know, he's plus 300. He has gotten hot at times. He won back-to-back on the European Tour last year. He's playing okay. He gets hot with his putter at times. I do not mind advancing Christian Bezuidenhout out of Group 7, which is kind of scary because Reed's here. It's kind of scary because Bubba's here. It's kind of scary because Niemann's here, but I don't mind that one single bit. Group 6 is tough as well. Schauffele, Scheffler, Day, Sullivan. So the odds on this are not great enough for me to really take a stand on. I think Scheffler in Texas is kind of interesting. I think Day, who can rely on that short game, is also kind of interesting. I'm not going to take a stand on Group 6. I'm just going to let that kind of come to me. I probably won't bet that group. Rory McIlroy leads Group 11. Again, I'm not betting. I would rather bet Rory to win than to get out of his group at plus 130. I have already bet Lonto Griffin at plus 400 to get out of this group. Cam Smith and Ian Poulter round that one out. 14 is a huge question mark I'm probably not going to touch. Berger, English, Todd, Eric Van Rooyen. I don't know. I really don't know about these guys. I'm not going to touch any of it. No, I'm not going to bet a guy who withdrew with a rib injury last week, had an MRI last week. Harris English hasn't been good. I like Todd's putter, but he's 0 for 3 in match play. Not for me. And then Group 3, if I had to bet one of these guys, it would be Munoz, the worst odds at plus 450 to come out of this group. I can't bet Rahm to win his group at plus 110. I as much as I love Palmer, I'm not interested. But Munoz is, again, very, very streaky. Remember what he did at, I want to say it was the Northern Trust, birdied his first 8 holes of the day. Obviously, he's not going to do that every time, but there are certain guys who can do that, and there are certain guys who cannot do that. And Sebastian Munoz is absolutely a streaky type golfer that, hey, get hot for a couple of days, couple holes in a row, steal a couple of matches, have a match, and you've moved on. So at plus 450, which is some of the longest odds that we're getting to get out of the group, I don't think that's all that terrible. All right, for the one and done. So let's talk one and done. In the Run Good one and done, there was actually someone who had Matt Jones last week. One pick for Matt Jones in the Run Good one and done. Toker Nick 88 gets the full $1.2 million. Congratulations, Toker Nick. That was the completion of segment 2, which Graybo 23 won. So segment 2 is now complete. This is the first event of segment 3. So I'll update the standings after this event, of course. Overall, Chappy Chaps in the lead, I believe back in the lead. I can't remember if he had it last week or not. Caster Joshua is in second. Nash the Flash, Ugri, and Graybo round out the top 5. Here I am lurking in 16th. I'm coming for you, boys. So that's for their standings. But let's go back to the bracket here because this is a really interesting situation that we have on our hands. We've got a WGC, which has $1.8 million for the winner. So it's a massive field or a massive prize pool. It is a small field, 64 golfers. But it's the most volatile of the WGCs. So what do we do? I'm trying to get a second tier star. I don't think you can risk using your big name players here because it is just too volatile for historically. They've not gotten out of the group at a good enough rate. So I really don't want to burn Bryson, Rom, JT, DJ, and get nothing in return for that. So I'm looking at kind of the next set of golfers. I think Patrick Reed, if you haven't used them, is in a really good spot here. The well-documented match play record. He's already got 2 WGCs on the resume. He's the favorite to get out of his group. His path is okay. It's not great. It's okay. I don't mind that at all. He's a big game hunter. So like I would probably circle Patrick Reed as my top guy for one and done this week. Outside of that, Paul Casey's kind of interesting. If you haven't used Paul Casey yet, again, he's a favorite to come out of his group. That's kind of what I'm focusing on, right? Favorites to get out of the group. If you get out of the group, you get the pay bump. You have a chance to move on. So Casey's the favorite to come out of his group. Not someone maybe outside of Valspar I would have saved for somewhere else, but he's played well in match play before. I would be fine with that. I also might just go with Matthew Fitzpatrick here. I think Group 15 is really intriguing. But Fitz, I got to tip the cap to him. He's been awesome. The other thing is you could just try to target a really soft group. Like I think Group 12 is probably the softest or the one that doesn't have the most obvious answer. So like, would I play Will Zalatoris? Maybe. Would I play Jason Kokrak? Maybe. I actually don't even mind Dylan Fratelli this week, but maybe I just pick Jason Kokrak and say, have at it, young man. Go as far as you can. And if I burn you and you get me, I mean, you still get the minimum payout, right? So you're going to get, I don't know what it is, $64,000 or something like that. You're going to get that anyway. Maybe I say I got $64,000 from Jason Kokrak and I'm happy with it. I don't know. So it depends on what your situation is. I probably rank them Reed, Casey, Fitz, Kokrak, maybe Zalatoris, which is kind of weird because they're in the same group, but the process is still the same. So let me know. I'm very curious to see what you guys are going to do this week because it is an incredibly interesting situation. So tweet me at RickRunGood or leave a comment below. Best of luck this week, and I'll talk to you guys soon.